right. You know what time it is? It's that time of the day where I'm going over 7 days to 740 credit. And today I'm talking about installment loans. Why you need installment loan on your credit report, how to manage the installment loans, why you should never pay the installment loan off, and what is an installment loan. So that's what I'm going over today, is how to properly manage installment loans on your credit in order to have the highest credit score possible. So let's start with, what is an installment loan? An installment loan is a loan that you get that has a set number of payments and a set dollar amount. For example, a car, an auto loan, would be an installment loan. When you go to the dealership and you buy a car, technically it's not an auto loan, it's a retail installment contract. They then sell that to the highest bidder, aka the bank, and the bank then reports it on your credit report as an auto loan. This, my friend, is illegal because it's not an auto loan. It is a retail installment contract. An auto loan is when you go to the bank and you refinance the vehicle that you bought at a dealership. Anytime you buy it at a dealership, that is a retail installment contract and should be recorded as such on your credit report, but they never are. And that's how we get repossessions and late payments associated with auto loans removed from the credit report, because it's technically a retail installment contract. Now, auto loans are a type of installment loan. Another type of installment loan would be a motorcycle loan, a boat loan, an airplane loan. An installment loan, again, is just a loan for a certain amount of money over a certain amount of time, and it's the same payment, or maybe the last payment's a little bit less. Okay? Now, what's not an installment loan that's still a loan? A mortgage. A mortgage is not an installment loan. It is a mortgage. They're handled differently on a credit report, and they impact your credit score differently. See, auto loans or installment loans, the balance that you owe versus the balance or the loan amount does matter. So if you go buy a new F-150 and they'll say it's $50,000 and you don't put any money down, a month later, it's a $50,000 loan with a $50,000 balance. You make your payment, it goes down. The more payments you make, the higher your score will go up because the balance owed will go down. So as you pay down an installment loan, your score will increase. But with a mortgage, as you pay the mortgage down, you're not going to see a difference in your credit score from paying down the mortgage. Now, you will see potentially the credit score going up as the mortgage gets older, because the longer you go and the longer you make payments, or the more payments you make on anything, will increase your credit score. So just to be clear, a mortgage is not an installment loan. Car loans, student loans. Student loans are a great example of an installment loan. And student loans, surprisingly, are, in my opinion, the absolute best type of loan that you can have on a credit report, because they're generally 20 to 30-year loans, which means if it's a 20-year loan, you're going to get 40 years of reporting out of that loan if you properly manage it. I kind of messed that up. You're going to get 40 years of reporting if properly managed. What I mean by that is you get 20 years of payment history and then it'll report for another 20 years. So an installment loan can technically report for 40 years, whereas a mortgage can report for 50 years. Again, with mortgages, the balance owed versus how much the loan was originally doesn't matter. With an installment loan, how much you owe versus how much you borrowed does matter. How about a line of credit? Well, that's not an installment loan. It is a line of credit. An overdraft protection loan. You've heard of those before, right? They're not installment loans. They're lines of credit. Even though they say they're a loan, they're technically a line of credit because it's not a set amount of money paid over a set amount of time. It is a line of credit. You use it as you need it, and the payment can vary. So with a credit card or a line of credit or an overdraft protection loan, if you use it, the balance can go up. You can pay it down to zero and it still stays open. With an installment loan, when you pay, the balance goes down. When you pay it off, it then reports as a zero balance and it's closed. That's really how to remember if it's an installment loan or a line of credit is if you pay it off, does it stay open? If it stays open, it's almost always a line of credit. If when you pay it off, it closes, that's an installment loan. All right, so now we know what an installment loan is. Now I want to talk about how many installment loans you will have on your credit. See, with credit cards, you need at least 3 credit cards at all times, open, being used on your credit in order to have great credit. And this course is 7 days to 740 credit. Anything above 740 is considered great. Anything under 740, you don't want to have it. So in order to have a 740 credit score or higher, you generally need 1 installment loan. That's it, just 1. You don't need 3 like you do with credit cards. You just need 1 installment loan. That could be a car loan. It could be a student loan. It could be a personal loan. And I didn't talk about that earlier. A personal loan is you go into a bank or credit union, you say, I need $1,000. They give you $1,000. They spread it out over 2 years. That's an installment loan. That's a personal loan. It's not a line of credit. It's a loan. So you need at least 1. And you generally want to have that account open for at least 4 years because 90% of all bad credit, 90% of all late payments rather, happen within the first 2 years of the account being open. 90% of the time, first 2 years. So FICO wants to see the account being open for 4 years. The longer it's open, the better it is for your credit, which is why I like student loans because, like I said earlier, they can be reported for 40 plus years if managed properly. So to recap, you only need 1 installment loan in order to have great credit. Now, I said earlier that you should never close an installment loan or you should never pay it off early. It's okay to pay off an installment loan at the due date when it's due, when the term, when it comes due, or the final term. So for example, if you get a 5-year auto loan, you want to pay it off at the 5-year mark. You don't want to pay it off early. You never want to pay off installment loans early. You just want to pay them down quickly. Because if you pay them off, they're going to show up as closed, and then you'll most likely see your credit score go down. I talk a lot about this guy. You would say he's a celebrity, has a couple million followers on social media. Very, very vocal guy, very, very successful man. And 4 years ago, he asked me to look at his credit, and I pulled it up, and he was in the 500s. Now, this is a guy that his company's doing $50 million a year in sales. He hangs out with guys like Damon John, Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, Ed Milet, Grant Cardone, Andy Frisella. And the list goes on and on and on of all these celebrities, actors, professional athletes. Those are his clients. And he does really well financially. So I was in his office one day and he's like, hey, could you look at my credit score? I can't figure out how to increase it. So I looked at it and he's in the 500s. If you know anything, you know that 500, anything in the 500 range is not good. And anything in the 600 is not good. You need to be 740 or higher. So I looked at his credit and he's got like a 5 whatever. And he doesn't have late payments. He doesn't have collections, doesn't have charge-offs or repos or short sales, no negative information at all. But he does have something that is driving down his score, and that is installment loans that are only open for 2 to 3 months at a time. So I said, what's the deal with this? And I know what it is, but I just want to ask him so he tells me so then I can say why you don't want to do this. So what he was doing was he likes cars. And he would go to the dealership and he'd buy a new car. He'd drive it for a couple months, decide, you know what, I don't like this car anymore, and he would sell it. Sometimes he'd buy a car to drive it to sell it at a profit because his family owns a bunch of car dealerships. And so he can get these cars at wholesale, drive them for a few months, sell them, maybe make a couple bucks, or maybe just break even. So even if he breaks even, he's driving the cars for free. And these are nice cars. So I look at it and I said, the reason your credit score is in the 500s was there was really 2 reasons. One, his credit cards were all maxed out. And 2, he had all these installment loans where he opens the account, gets the loan, pays it off. Opens account, drives a car, pays it off. Gets a car, drives it for a little while, trades it in. And so he's constantly flipping cars or going through cars, and he's paying off the installment loans early. I want you to think of an installment loan as a pregnancy. My mother was pregnant with me somewhere between 9 and 10 months because women are actually pregnant for 10 months. It's called 40 weeks, not 36 weeks. But the baby can be born healthy between 36 and 40 weeks. And sometimes now with technology, even less than that. But a pregnancy, generally, you need to go full term, right? You don't want to have a baby prematurely because their body hasn't fully developed. It's not good for the mother, not good for the baby. It's just not good all around. So you want to go full term. Think of that loan the same way. You want to go full term. If it's a 4-year loan, you go 4 years. 5-year loan, go 5 years. 20-year student loan, you go 20 years. But I know what you're thinking. I don't want to pay interest. I don't either. But in order to have great credit, you got to pay a little bit of interest, not a lot. And this hack that I'm getting ready to explain to you, the banks hate it. Banks absolutely hate it because I'm going to show you how you can get the increased credit score and the decreased interest all at the same time. The other way I want you to think of the installment loan is a marriage. If you are dating somebody and during the time that you're dating, you're talking to this person, you find out they've been married 10 times. 10 times they've been married. Would that raise any red flags with you? That they got married, they said they're going to be married for a long time, till death do us part, right? And then they got divorced 10 different times. There's a lot of money that goes into weddings, a lot of money goes into marriages, a lot of money moving back and forth, a lot of time, a lot of effort. Similar to applying for a loan. It costs money for a bank to underwrite you and to loan you money. And they have to choose, do I want to loan the money to you or do I want to loan the money over here? Who's going to pay me back? Who's going to pay me the full amount? And this matters. So if you are constantly getting loans and paying them off early, the bank is going to look at that and they're going to see, well, this payment, this client here got a 5-year car loan and they kept it for a year and they paid it off. So we know statistically, based on their history, they'll probably pay off this loan early, which means we're not going to make as much money. So in order for us to loan you the money, we're going to jack up the interest rate. And that's what happens. If they see that you're paying off the loans early, they just simply double or triple the interest rate. They increase it so they still get their money. The other thing that happens is because they're in business, really, with FICO, because they pay the credit bureaus to report and they buy the FICO scores, they can tell FICO what they want. And they've told FICO, if someone pays off a loan early, we want you to lower their credit score. And so that's what FICO does. If you pay off the loan early, they lower your credit score because the banks want more money out of you. They don't like the fact that they spend money, time, and effort and resources underwriting you, loaning you the money, and then you turn around and pay it off early so you don't have to pay them interest. They don't like that at all. So they'll punish you if you pay it off early. So now I want to go over the hack on how to have the installment loans for as long as possible and pay the least amount of interest. So the way this works is when you have an installment loan, you can make extra payments and the bank will take that extra payment and apply it to the future payment. So let's say that you went in and you bought a $60,000 vehicle. And this $60,000 vehicle is financed over 60 months. And it's at 10% interest. You're going to pay a little over $1,000 a month, $1,000 for the principal, a little bit for the interest. Your first year, the interest is going to be around $6,000. So you're going to pay about $1,500 a month in payments. You decide, I don't want to pay the interest, so you pay it off. Bad idea. Remember, you do that, your score goes down. So instead, you want to start paying it down quickly. So if your payment is $1,500 a month, instead of paying it off, you simply pay extra. And let's say you pay $3,000 a month, $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month. It doesn't matter. You simply just send the check or the bill pay check to the creditor, and they're going to process that payment. And anything extra that's on that check, they're going to apply it to next month's payment. So if this month's payment is $1,500 and you send in $3,000, they're going to take that extra $1,500 and apply it to next month's payment. So next month, you're going to get an invoice back from them. And it says you now owe $3,000 less than you did last month. Payment due $0, because they took the extra $1,500 that you paid and they applied it to the following month's payment. Let's say that you make another payment, another $3,000. The following month, they're going to send you your invoice, and it's going to show that you don't have a payment due now for another 2 months. This is how you hack the system. By making those extra payments, they simply apply it to the following month's payment or the due date. Or by making the extra payments, they simply apply it to the following month's payment. Chastity, we fix the TVs. Hold on 1 second for you guys watching this live. Chastity's got to fix the TVs. Now, here's some things you need to know about this hack. Number one, do not call the bank and ask them permission, because they're going to tell you no. They're not going to understand it. They will say, we have a policy where we don't let you make extra payments. That, my friend, has been illegal for a long time, to have prepayment penalties on loans. They used to be able to have a prepayment penalty. There are still cases, mainly business loans, where there's prepayment penalties. But for the most part, personal installment loans don't have prepayment penalties. Business loans may. So don't call the bank and ask them if you can do this. Just do it. Just try it out and see what happens. Next, never write on the check principal only. Don't write that on the check. I know you might have been taught that by someone to always write principal only or extra payments principal only. You don't want to do that, because what will happen is if you do principal only on the check, they'll apply it to the principal, not towards the following month's payment. And the next month, you'll still have a payment due. Okay? Now, the only time you want to write principal only on it is generally on a mortgage. You want to write principal only because if you make extra payments on a mortgage, they almost always put it in escrow, and that money sits in the escrow account, gaining no interest. You're still paying interest on the mortgage. And then at the end of the year, they'll send you back the money. You don't want to do that. So when you do it on mortgages, you write principal only. But when you do this on an installment loan, you don't write anything on the check except for the account number. You send in the payment, they move it forward. Now, if you want to make more than just one or two extra payments, let's say that you're like, Rondi, I can't sleep at night with debt. Yeah, it's only 3% interest, but I can't sleep that way. I have friends that are like that. My good friend, Ed Milet. Ed's worth about $700 million. Ed, I personally believe, would be worth a few $billion if he would use debt, but he doesn't like debt. He has a thing for debt and he just doesn't want to use it. So he pays cash for everything. I personally have no issue with debt. I have another friend, Aaron. Aaron is on his way to being a billionaire. He uses debt the right way, but he still doesn't like it. And so he tries not to use debt. And then I have guys that I know, like Grant Cardone, that leverages everything. And Grant is trying to become a billionaire. Some people are saying he's a billionaire, but he's not. He has over $1 billion in debt, but that does not make you a billionaire. You're not a billionaire until your net worth is $1 billion. He's worth millions, but not $1 billion yet. But I think he will be if he continues and he doesn't default on any of the loans. I personally don't have an issue with debt. I'm good with it. I don't lose any sleep at night worrying about missing a payment. Some people do. And if you're that kind of person that's afraid to have debt, it's okay. What you do is when you go in and you purchase that vehicle, you will always pay less if you finance it through the dealership. Always. Because they're making money from the bank. And so they can make less money from you on the car if they make more money from the bank. So you always want to finance it, but you don't want the debt. So instead of paying cash, you get the loan, which saves you on the car. The following month, so let's go back to the $60,000 F-150 example. You put down whatever the minimum payment is. Let's say the minimum payment's $10,000. Okay, so you put $10,000 down. You get a loan for $50,000. They're going to finance that over 5 years. Your payment's $1,000 a month. You don't want the debt. So what you're going to do is the following month, you're going to write a check for $49,500. So you're going to pay that $50,000 loan down to $500. Now you can pay it down to $200, you can pay it down to $300, you can pay it down to $1,000, you can pay it down to $50. It really doesn't matter. I'm just using this as an example. So you pay down to $500. Now you're going to spread that $500 out over that 60-month term, because remember, it's a 5-year loan. $50,000 financed at 5% interest for 5 years. And you're going to take it, pay it down to $500, and then you're going to divide that by 60 plus the interest, and you're going to pay, I don't know, $10 a month, $11 a month, $20 a month, somewhere in there. If you want to get really creative, and I've done this on every single loan I've had since 2012, I will pay it down to $50. So you get that $50,000 truck. The next month, you write a check for $49,950, which leaves you a balance of $50. And then you set up bill pay for $1 a month for the next 5 years. And every month, $1 showing up, and it's getting lower and lower. Now, by doing this, it keeps the account open. All of the extra payments that you made show up on your credit report. So it looks like a month into a 5-year loan, looks like you've made 5 years worth of payments. That really helps out your credit score. Also, the loan balance goes down, so that helps your credit score. And it helps your debt to income ratios, because on the payment, it's going to show minimum payment due 0. And so now you can have the best of both worlds. You have the loan reporting, so you get the positive impact of the loan reporting, so you have great credit for life, but then you also have the feeling that you don't have a payment. Technically, you're not debt-free. Technically, you're not. But does it really matter that you owe $50 on a car that's worth $50,000? If worse comes to worse, you can come up with $50 and pay off the loan. Now, what are the downfalls of this? The biggest downfall is you got to carry full coverage insurance, because it's required by the bank when you have a loan. I was talking to someone recently, and he's got a $30,000 truck, and somehow it come up in conversation that he doesn't have insurance on this truck. And you know what I said to him? I said, that's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. He was really offended by it, by the way. He was very offended that I called him stupid. And I didn't call him stupid. I said, that's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. That he's got a $30,000 truck with a $30,000 loan and no insurance. 1, it's illegal. And 2, it's irresponsible. And 3, it's just stupid. So the only negative side of doing this hack is you got to have full coverage insurance. So let me ask you a question. If you had a $50,000 F-150 and you were driving around, wouldn't you want to have insurance on it anyways? Full coverage really doesn't cost that much more than liability insurance. You're going to want to have the insurance regardless. Now, what happens if you need to sell the vehicle? You send a check for $50 to the bank, you pay it off. If you go to trade it in, you do your thing. Now, one of the things that people will ask me on a regular basis is, should I lease a car versus get an installment loan? It doesn't really matter if it's leased or not. It is the most expensive way to drive a vehicle or to own a vehicle, and actually you don't own it. You're just renting it. You're just paying the depreciation. But if you want to drive a new vehicle every 3 years and you don't have any other consumer debt, then do it. But one of the things that people ask me is, should I refinance the vehicle or should I trade it in? What about my credit? Well, I can tell you this. When you pay it off, whether it's paid off, trade in, or refinance, it is going to lower your credit. So let me ask you, if you bought the vehicle at 17% interest, and then you hired my company to fix your credit, and now you have great credit and you can refinance this vehicle for 3% interest, would you care if you had a hard inquiry and it lowers your credit score a little bit, if you're saving potentially tens of thousands of dollars in interest? No. It goes back to the trophy versus the tool. You want your credit to be as high as possible so you can use it as a tool. You don't want your credit high so you can brag about your credit score and show off your trophy to all your friends. So when it comes to refinancing and saving money, I always recommend that you should save money and don't worry about what it does to your credit score, because eventually it's going to fix itself. So if you could refinance it and save a bunch of money on interest, then absolutely refinance it and then do the same thing. Pay that loan down as fast as possible. Don't pay it off in full. Now, when it comes to student loans, generally with student loans, you almost always have one loan payment, but for every semester is a different sequence number. So when you call into the servicer, you have a loan account number, but then you might have 12 semesters or 12 sequence numbers and 12 individual loans. With this, you can pay off all of the other sequence numbers, but just leave a little bit left. So what I would do if I had student loans is I would make that extra payment and I would write on the check the sequence number, apply to sequence number X. So you send your regular payment in and then you send a separate payment in, and that is when you write something on the check. So they apply it to the sequence number that you want, or the lowest balance semester loan. Okay. Because remember, unless you consolidated them into one, you're going to have multiple different loans under one account number. And if you just send another check in, they're just going to evenly divide it on all of it, which is not what you want to do. You want to start applying it to the lowest balance. So that gives you a little bit of momentum. And so when you look at it, you're like, hey, I'm making a difference. And then you'll end up having one loan open. You paid off all the other loans. You still got the one. At that point, you want to pay that down and then pay the $1 a month. Now, on your credit, it could also report as multiple different loans, multiple different account numbers. So you could have a bunch of Sally Mays, you could have a bunch of Nelnets. With those, I would pay them all down to a couple dollars, $50 or so, $100, whatever it is, and then pay $1 a month on it until they go full term. Because the longer you go, the greater the credit score will be. The more accounts you have on your credit report, the better it is. You'll have what's called a thick credit file. And then what happens with this is, let's say that accidentally you do forget to make a payment. You do have a late payment show up. If you have years, 10 years of payment history on 30 different accounts, never been late, and you get one late payment, it's not a big deal. If you get 2 late payments, probably not a big deal. Hit 90 days late, yeah, it's going to affect you. Versus if you pay off all these loans and you no longer have them on your credit and you only got one loan left and you get a 30-day late on it, it's going to be a big deal, because now 100% of the accounts on your credit report are late. Whereas if you had 30 accounts total and you had one late, well, that's what, 3%? 3.33% of the accounts are late versus 100%. So hopefully that made sense on that hack and how you want to treat student loans and auto loans. Chastity, is there anything else I need to go over?
No.
Okay. So if you guys are live watching this, this is a 7 days to 740 credit. And so now I'm going to do Q&A. All right, let's do some Q&A on how installment loans should be managed on your credit in order to have the best credit. Please, if you're going to ask questions in the Q&A section, please keep the questions around installment loans.
Is there non-installment
All right, let's go. Lynn says, can you repeat how get the car loan? How to get the car loan? I think you mean how to manage the car loan. I'm not sure, but let's do this, Chastity. On this question, let's take this off. Lynn, if you're still here, I'm going to give you an example of how you can get a car loan that can make a difference. So remove that, Chastity. All right. So one of the things that you might need to do is get an installment loan because you need at least one on your credit. But let's say you don't, all of your cars are paid off. You don't have any student loans. You need to get a personal loan or an installment loan reporting. One thing you can do is you can go into the bank and you can get a personal loan. So you can go to the bank with, let's say, $1,000, and you can say, banker, I'm trying to increase my credit score. If I give you $1,000, will you loan me $1,000? I'll pay 10% interest. And I'd like that $1,000 loan to be financed over 4 years because you always want to try to get 4 years out of it. Every banker out there will say, absolutely. So you give them $1,000. They then give you $1,000 back. So you walked in with the bank with $1,000. You walk out with the bank with $1,000. The difference is when you walked in, you didn't have $1,000 loan. When you walk out, you still got $1,000 in your pocket, but now you have $1,000 loan that's going to report for at least 4 years. The problem is you're now in debt. So you got to work on this part up here and know that it's okay to have that debt. The other problem is you're going to have to pay a little bit of interest. Now, you could do what the bank wants you to do, which is make the minimum payment for the next 4 years and pay 10% interest on the full amount. That's not what you're going to do. Remember, you gave them $1,000, you walked out with $1,000 and $1,000 balance on a loan. The following month, you're going to write a check for $950, and you're going to pay that $1,000 loan down to $50. And now you're going to make $1 a month for the remaining term. This is how you can get a loan without really going into debt. Now you can do the same thing if you have a car loan, because personal loans are a little bit harder to get because there's no collateral other than the cash. But it's easier sometimes with the car loan. So let's say that you have a car and it's worth $10,000. You go to your banker and you say, look, I'm trying to increase my credit. I know I need an installment loan on my credit in order to have great credit. So if I give you the title to my truck, it's worth $10,000. Will you give me a loan for $5,000? They'll all say yes. Every single banker out there. You do it with me, I'll say yes. Because I got a $10,000 asset that I'm loaning you $5,000. Worst case scenario, I'll come repo the truck, I sell it, I get my money back, and I make some money. That's how the banks look at it. It's a good risk for them. They know you're going to make the payment because you don't want to lose the truck. So you give them the title to the $10,000 truck, which means you got to have full coverage, which you should already have it. Now you have a $5,000 loan. Okay, so no money out of your pocket. They give you $5,000 in cash. You wait a month. You write a check for $4,950. You pay that loan down to $50. Pay $1 a month for the next 4 or 5 years. So that's one of the ways that you can create an installment loan out of thin air. And most banks will loan you that money. And if your bank says no, just go to another bank because they'll do it. Because they're going to take that money. I don't know if you guys know how fractional reserve banking works, but they're going to take that $5,000 that you gave them or the title, and they're going to put that on their balance sheet. That's going to allow them to loan out more money to other people. They're going to make a lot more in interest from other people than they are on your loan. So this is one way to hack the system and get the installment loan without actually going and buying a new car. Sean from Facebook says, this is a great hack currently using it. It's $40,000 car loan, paid $39,942 all at once. Now I have a payment set up for $1.13 a month for the next 58 months. Beautiful, Sean. That's absolutely perfect. And when you use bill pay, as you know, it doesn't cost you anything for a stamp, an envelope, or a check because bill pay takes care of it. Now, here's one thing that I should have covered earlier, but I didn't. If you ask permission from the bank, they're going to say it's not going to work, don't do it, blah, blah, blah. If you are signed up for ACH or automatic payments where the bank EFTs money out of your account, it's not going to work, guys. Because if you paid it down, in Sean's example here, he owes $48 or so on a $40,000 loan. If he had ACH or EFT transfer, automatic payments from the bank where they take it out of your account, the following month they pay it off. They take all the money out, they pay it off. So you cannot have automatic payments. So it's really important when you go in and you ask for the loan, many banks will say, if you do automatic payments, it'll be a 0.5 point less. Say no. In December, I refinanced 2 vehicles, and it was going to be a point less in interest. And I said no. So instead of paying 2% interest on these loans, I'm now paying 3% interest. Why would I want to pay more? Because I want to be able to pay it down. In fact, my $80,000 truck, I owe like $26,000 on it because I'm just hacking away on it. I could pay it off today, but it's 3% money. So I'm not really in a big hurry to pay it off. I am making some extra payments. I could stop. I have it, even though I took out the loan in December, I'm already like 3 years ahead of schedule. I could literally go 3 years without making payment, just like you, Sean. You could go 57 months without making an extra payment. The reason why I recommend that you make a monthly payment is 1, it lowers your interest. 2, it shows activity, which you need activity from FICO. And 3, it keeps the bank from calling the note due because there's payments coming in. Okay. Great question. I think Christopher Maddox from YouTube had a question. Yeah, he does. I'll click on it right here.
I just added one of his. You want to do that one first?
Let's do this one. Should I pay my loan? Should I pay down my installment loan $2,500? I think if I read this right, you have an installment loan where you owe $2,500. If you have the cash, I would pay that down to $50 or so and then pay $1 a month, whatever that math works out to be. Because why pay interest on $2,500? I'm not saying that you need to pay a lot of interest. There's that lunatic on the radio that says cash is king, debt is dumb. He will say, in order to have great credit, you got to bow down and kneel down at the altar of FICO. And you got to be in debt and you got to do blah, blah, blah. None of it's true. You got to pay a little bit of interest, Chris. So on this case, I would pay that down to like, I don't know, $25, $50. So the interest is only at $25 instead of $2,500. So that's what I would do. Okay, so Chris says the loan is with Credit Strong. Credit Strong is an affiliate of ours, and they're a company that basically will report a loan on your credit without giving you the cash. It's almost like a savings account. So you open a savings account with them, you pay them a monthly fee for this savings account. They get the interest off of the money. They exchange, will report it as a loan, but it's not really a loan. Now, Credit Strong works for some people, and it's a good program. I personally don't go out and recommend them. You will not get text messages from me or emails. Yes, I'm friends with the owners, the founders. Yes, they are an affiliate, but I generally don't recommend Credit Strong. Instead, I would recommend going into your bank, getting an installment loan, getting the cash, making the payment the next month and paying it down and doing the strategy that I talked about earlier. So, Christopher, you might want to just pay off that loan and do the other strategy. You can pay it off and close it out. But just get with them and find out what the particulars and specifics are. Gregory from Facebook says, my installment loan is for 5 years, 31% interest. Ouch. And it's on automatic ACH. Well, this program will not work if it's on ACH. So that hack, I shouldn't say the program, the hack that I was talking about will not work if you're on ACH. Now, that's partially true. It will work up until the moment that the ACH is greater than the amount owed. So if it is 5 years at 31% interest and you owe $10,000 and the payment's $400 a month, it will work all the way up until the payment that's with the balance, until the balance owed is less than $400. Because the moment the balance owed is less than $400, the loan will be paid off, and then it doesn't work. So what I recommend, Gregory, is if you want to do this and it's on your credit and it's impacting you in a good way and it's something that you can afford to pay off, I would call them. I would ask them to remove the ACH, and I'd pay that sucker down as fast as possible. If they won't do it, it'll still work up until that last payment. And this would be a good example. 31% interest is outrageous. I would get that paid off one way or the other. If you can't do this program, then just pay it off. And again, remember, credit's a tool, not a trophy. In this case, it is better to save that 31% interest than it is to have 5 points extra or 100 points. You know what I'm saying? So I would look at that and base it off of really what's going on. I don't know enough on this to really tell you much more than that. If you want to put more information in, I'll answer some more, or I'll give you some more recommendation. Joanne from YouTube says, can I use HELOC along with the installment hack? Yes, you can. I have, inside Fortress University, we have a course that's called How to Pay Off a 30-Year Mortgage in 10 Years Without Making an Extra Payment. How would you like to know how to literally eliminate 20 years of payments, or approximately 70% of the interest on a mortgage, without making extra payments? You're going to pay off a 30-year mortgage in 10 years with no extra payments? Yes. And it all has to do with the HELOC. So a HELOC, when you combine a HELOC and an installment loan, it is magic if you do it properly. I don't have time to go into it now, but I do have a course that is how to pay off a 30-year mortgage in 10 years with no extra payments. That's what I go into. I specifically show you how to use the HELOC, home equity line of credit. You can also use a credit card. You can also use an overdraft protection loan. As long as it's a line of credit. Credit cards are actually better, by the way, because there's no interest. So you can use the line of credit to pay down the installment loan and eliminate 70% of the interest. So Joanne, thank you for the question. And yes, using a HELOC is a great strategy to pay off those installment loans. Randy Morris from YouTube says, on installment loans, do you want to pay them down to low payment full term and continue to use installment loans on different items to build the credit file? Okay, so on an installment loan, they give you the money once, you pay it down, they don't give you more money. That's a line of credit. So on installment loans, you want to pay them down to the very low balance, then pay $1 a month for the remaining term, but you can't get that money back because it is an installment loan. So earlier, when I was talking about the line of credit, the advantage of using a line of credit to pay down your mortgage versus paying extra on a mortgage is if you need to use the money, if you need some of that cash back, you get it out via line of credit. So great question, Randy. Thank you. Travis Turner from YouTube says, when you leave $60 on an installment loan after paying 99% of the loan, does the bank want the whole $60 next month, or do you set up $60 on auto pay? This is why it will not work if you're on ACH. They're going to take the $60 the following month and close the account. So you cannot be on ACH. Of course, the bank wants the $60, but you're not going to give it to them. You're going to give them $1 a month for the next 60 months, whatever the term is. Sometimes it's more than $1. In the case earlier, it was $1.13 for 58 months. Okay. So yes, they're going to want the $60. And this is why you need to schedule the payments every single month. Otherwise, they may call the note due and ask for the $60. Now, I have been doing this literally for at least 9 years. No, that's not true. I have been doing this since 2009. Because I was trying to think about, when did I buy my Toyota Tundra? It was a 2010 Tundra. I bought it in 2009. So I've been doing this now since 2009. I've done it on every single loan that I have. And with exception to one account, it has worked perfectly. The one account that it did not work perfectly on was a trailer. I have a 17-foot cargo trailer that I tow behind my motorhome with my motorcycles inside of it. And I got that loan from Sheffield Financial. And it was like, I don't know, 5% interest or something. I don't even know. I had the cash. It wasn't like the trailer was expensive. It was like $5-6 grand at 5-6% for 5 years or something like that. It wasn't a lot of money. Could have easily paid cash for it, but I practice what I preach. And so I got a 5-year loan on this thing. The following month, I paid it down to like $50. And then I paid $1 a month. And I made it all the way to like the 4th year and 7 months or something. And I ended up having like $6 or $7 on the loan. And Sheffield Financial finally got tired of mailing me invoices every month and paying 50 cents a month on a stamp when they were charging me like a penny a month in interest. And so they ended up just sending me the title. They never sent me a letter, never called me. It's just 1 month when I owed like $6 or $7. The title showed up in the mail versus an invoice. So generally speaking, they do want the $60, Travis. But as long as you make minimum payments and don't talk to them about it, again, don't ask for permission. Don't ask for permission. They're going to tell you no. I had my motorhome company, Greater Nevada Credit Union. I was talking to her one day, and she's like, oh, I noticed you made a bunch of extra payments. You know, you can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean I can't do that? She's like, oh, no, we're going to start sending your payments back. I'm like, you're not going to send my payments back. That's our company policy. Well, she was wrong. I still have paid that way down to almost nothing. Yes, I'm not debt free because I got a little tiny loan on a couple $100,000 motorhome. And if I needed to today, I could pay off that little tiny loan and sell the motorhome. So it works almost every time. There are some cases it doesn't. Payday loans, which you don't want to do payday loans. The Credit Strong, ACH, or like the buy here, pay here loans. A lot of those buy here, pay here's, those are not really loans. Those are rental agreements, car rentals. So when you see those signs, buy here, pay here, bad credit, okay. Have you ever thought to yourself, how do those guys that will loan money and give a car to anyone that can fog up a mirror, regardless if they're employed, regardless if they have good credit or not, they will loan you money to purchase that car? Have you ever wondered, like, how can they stay in business? Well, they're not giving you a loan. They're renting the car to that consumer. So when they go in and they got the car, it's actually a rent to own, which means you rent it. And as long as you pay your rent that goes towards the loan, as long as you pay that, you get to keep the car. If you miss the payment by one day, it's auto theft if you don't return the car. See, with a car loan, they got to come repo it. And they got to do all these things, follow the law, get the police involved, fill out paperwork, hide out, wait in the middle of the night, etc. When it's a car rental and you don't pay it and you don't bring it back, it is auto theft, and the police come knock on your door and they throw you in jail. This is how those this is how the buy here, pay here car dealerships work. Those are car rentals, not loans. Anyway, just a little information for you. Here's a good question. Maybe it is. Of course it is. It's from Sean from Facebook. Rondi, could I go to the bank, get $15,000 personal loan, and then take $14,950 of that $15,000, pay it off, and then just make the monthly installments over the next 4 or 5 years? Of course, this would just to get the loan working on credit. Absolutely, Sean. That's exactly what I said, which you probably wrote that in before I talked about it. But yes, this thing works beautifully. I have so many people I've recommended this to because they don't want to have the debt. They listen to that guy on the radio, and so they listen to him, and now they got horrible credit, and they can't buy a house. They can't get a credit card. They can't get a decent rate. They're paying 31% interest on a loan. And this lunatic, by the way, he makes money by people going into debt. Most of his money is made from Churchill Mortgage and real estate agents. That's why he's a licensed real estate agent, because that's where he makes a lot of his money. Tens of millions of dollars in referral fees for his listeners going into debt, paying higher interest rates to his buddy's mortgage company that he gets a kickback on, all while he's saying credit score doesn't matter. And his buddy's like, yes, thank you so much. It's higher interest rates. I make more money. That's how that game works. So yes, Sean, that's exactly how it works. You go to the bank, apply for $15,000 loan the following month, $14,950, pay $1 a month for the next 5 years. Perfect. Amador from Facebook says, is there any harm in paying off a signature loan, installment loan, and getting another? Having a good relationship with a credit union, good score on credit report. Okay, so a couple of different questions there. Yeah, it's a really bad idea to pay off a loan early. Really bad idea. If you pay off that installment loan, signature loan early, it will ruin your credit score. Just like what I was talking earlier. The guy makes $50 million a year, hangs out with the most famous people in the world, extremely wealthy man, 500 credit score because he did that. He was constantly getting loans and paying them off. So don't do it. Get one installment loan, pay it down, pay the minimum for as long as you possibly can. Limus Donnell from YouTube says, I owe I think it says 40,000 or maybe 400 on car loan at Navy Federal. What would you suggest, my friend? Only have 4 more payments. Oh, so you probably only owe $400. Well, as long as it's full term, then just, make those payments just like normal. Go full term. If you want to pay a little bit less interest, you pay it down to $40 and then pay $10 a month for the next 4 months or whatever. But you're pretty close. You're almost there. So you can either just pay the interest on the full $400 and leave it the way it is, or you can pay it down a little bit. Doesn't really matter. But good question, though. Congrats on that. Gregory from Facebook says, oh, okay. So this was on the earlier thing. Says it's an Upstart installment loan for $5,000 for 5 years, $166 a month. I can't sleep at night after educating myself with your university. I need some great advice. All right. So I'm glad that I'm not putting you to sleep. That's what I try not to do. So I'm glad that you can't sleep. So here's what I would do on that, Gregory, is I would pay that down as fast as possible. If you can pay it down to a couple $100, what's going to happen, and this is where people get messed up. If they ask the bank's going to tell you no. So here's what you do. If you want to test it, if your payment's $166, next month, send a payment for $500. Don't write anything on the check, just $500, send it in. I will put money on it that when you get your bill back, it's going to show payment due 0. Next payment date, X. Sometimes when Chastity actually edits this and puts it, I guess they call it post edit, and she puts this in Fortress University and puts all the slides in, you're going to see a copy of one of my bills, and it's going to show a car loan. It'll say payment due $1,000. Like my Ferrari, for example. The Ferrari loan will say payment due $1,040. Next due date, November 2025. So it shows that I have a payment due of $1,000, but the due date is 4 years from now. So if you want to test it, Gregory, send them $500, send them $1,000, whatever, and then look at your statement the following month. If you just send a check in, don't say anything on the check, you just send it in, they're literally going to take all that extra money and put it towards future payments. That's how you test it to see if it's going to work.
Will you clarify that if he gets another bill the next month for 166 of this month?
Oh, so if you send in, say you send in an extra $1,000 in the following month, you get your invoice and it says payment due 166, payment due tomorrow, or the following month. That means they took that extra money and they applied it towards your principal, which does lower your interest paid, but it won't work as far as the hack goes. It'll work for saving you money, and it's extremely rare. It's extremely rare that a bank will do this. I've seen it a couple times. It's almost always on like those credit strongs or the credit builder loans or the subprime loans. But I haven't seen it on regular car loans or personal loans. It's the loan specifically designed to increase your credit. Maybe Upstart's like that. But if it's not, so one of the things that you can do, let's say that Upstart is that way, that you have one of these weird loans and you can't do this hack, then I would recommend you go and get a new loan and you pay off the crappy loan with the new loan, and then you do the hack on the new loan. So you basically refinance the debt. Similar to what I did with my truck and my Jeep. I had high interest rates. I bought the truck and the Jeep from the dealership, so I saved almost $20,000 per vehicle by financing it with their shitty lender at 7 or 10% interest or whatever it was. And then literally before I had another payment due, I went to the credit union, got a real auto loan, at 3% interest. Would have been 2 if I had done ACH, but I paid 3% so I could do the hack. And that's all really what I did is I paid off the one loan with better money. Travis Turner from YouTube says, can you make the $1 a month payments through checking or savings on bill pay from my bank account so I don't forget to make the payment? Yes, absolutely. That is what I highly recommend. 100%. I could say 1,000,000%, but I don't know. Really, 1,000,000% is the same as 100%. It's always funny. People are like, 150%? Yes. Well, it's still 100%. Unless you're doing math times something. I gave 150% effort. No, you probably gave 40% effort, but you thought it was. But anyway, yes, 150% use bill pay. That is literally what I do. I set up bill pay. I go in. I was going to show you guys this, and unfortunately, it showed all my account numbers and balances and stuff, and I just didn't want to take the time to Photoshop all that stuff out. Chastity will do that post-edit. She'll put all that stuff in there. But what I do is literally, if you go into my bill pay, you'll see Idaho Credit Union. That's with the Jeep and the truck loan. Whatever the payment is times 60 months at X amount of dollars because it's paid down to whatever. So, and then I hit save, and then it's automatically. And remember, I talked about this on another program, and it was I pay weekly. So I pay my car loans weekly. I pay my credit cards weekly because for me, I get paid every day, every single day, with exception, I guess, Sunday, because the banks aren't open. I still get paid. It's just I don't see the deposit until Monday morning. But 99.9% of the money that comes in, it's a higher percentage than that. So just, we'll call it 100%. 100% of my clients pay me via credit card or debit card, and it comes through a merchant account or a bank deposit because we finance all of our customers now. And so that bank makes daily deposits in my bank account. So for me, because I'm paid daily, I pay my bills weekly because I don't want to pay interest for the full month. So if, let's say your payment is, I don't know, your car payment's $500 a month. Instead of paying $500 a month, pay $125 a week. So that way, every week they're going to receive $125. That's $125 the following week you're not going to pay interest on. Now, what will happen is there's a set amount of interest that they're going to bill you for. So let's say your payment's $500 a month and the interest is $125. So that first week is going to pay interest only. The following week, the $125 comes off the principal, which means the next week, there's more of the $125 going to principal because there's less interest because you made a payment weekly. Now, it's not a lot of money. It's not like you can do this and wipe out 90% of the interest, but you can knock out 10 to 20%. And if you want to see the math on it, there's a great app. It's on my phone. It's called Easy Calculator. And you can do the loan. It's got like 12 different calculators, compound interest, investing, etc. And you can put that in there. You can do the amortization on it. So you put in your loan amount. What if I make payments 4 times a month? Or what if I make 52 payments a year instead of 12 payments a year? It will actually show you the savings. So yes, Travis, do automatic payment through bill pay. Look at that. We're already over an hour. Best places to get credit score. Brian Nelson is the EA. If you guys don't know what EA stands for, I'm going to assume something here that stands for enrolled agent. Enrolled agent is someone who is certified by the IRS to work on your taxes, to go in front of a judge if you're audited. Basically, an enrolled agent is, they're above a CPA for sure. So they generally specialize in taxes, where a CPA, certified public accountant, most of the CPAs I've spoken to, don't know squat about taxes. They're accountants, they're bookkeepers, they're tax preparers. Enrolled agents like Brian here, I'm assuming that's what that stands for, is an enrolled agent. He is a tax professional. And if you're a business owner, I highly, highly recommend who's ever working on your taxes is an enrolled agent, not just a CPA, because CPAs are bean counters and paperwork pushers, generally not tax professionals. So back to your question, Brian, best place to get credit score. Hey, I'm going to do a shameless plug, creditmojo.com. I think that's the best place to go because it's my company and the money goes to a good cause. But you can go anywhere. It depends on what kind of score. If you want a FICO score, it would be myfico.com. It is going to be a FICO 8 score. And if you're thinking about a mortgage, they use FICO Model 2. So your FICO Model 8 is going to be much higher than your FICO Model 2. So lots of places to get scores. Just know that not all scores online, very, very few are FICO. The FICO scores that are out there are actually FICO Model 8s, 9s, and 10s, and nobody's really using those models. They're still using the old models. Jill Erez, maybe, from Facebook says, I only owe one of my credit cards, not a lot. Should I pay it off every month? Absolutely. 100%, my friend. I do not want you to pay interest to have great credit. Sometimes you got to pay a little bit of interest, but when it comes to credit cards, there's words out there like always, never, absolutely. Every time I start to say it, it's like, there's one exception. So I was going to say, you always want to pay off your credit cards. You don't always want to. Like, look at me. I talked about it earlier. I maxed out 2 credit cards because I'm trying to get a higher credit line increase. If I would have paid those off right away, the bank may or may not give me a line of credit, an extra, because I paid it off so quickly. So I needed it to report, which it did, and then I paid it off last night. So I'm not paying interest. And technically I paid a day's worth of interest, which is not very much. Okay. So I would always pay off your credit cards in full every month. The only exception to that, again, there's another exception. I said always. One of the things that you can do in the last course, when I talked about credit cards, I said if you're wanting to get the best credit score possible, you need 1 to 5% on that card. Preferably 1% if you're going to do this hack. So 1% of the credit limit. So if you have $1,000 credit limit, 1% would be $10. So what you can do is if you want all of your credit cards to perfectly report 1%, you pay it down to 1% and then let it stay there and you pay interest on that $10 or the 1%. So that's the only exception to one of the only exceptions of not paying off a credit card is so you can make it report 1% for 2 to 3 months so you can get that highest credit score. So when I was talking about this line of credit that I'm going to try to get in 96 days, that's what I'll do. About a month to 2 months before applying, I will pay all my credit cards down to 1%. I won't touch them. I won't use them. I won't do anything. And then when they report, they'll all show 1%. I'll have the highest possible credit score that I could have. And then the moment I get that new loan or the moment my score is pulled or my credit report's pulled and I get that score, I pay off all the credit cards. Jaldeep from YouTube. What's up, brother? Hey, it says, is it not better to keep $5 or $10 balance because every time I paid it off, my score drops by like 25 points? Yeah, that's kind of what I was just saying. So here's the thing is another exception. You can leave it, $5 or $10 on there. if you're not using the credit card on a regular basis. So if you do my strategy and you put Netflix on it, you don't need to pay interest on Netflix, just pay it off. Because remember, the statement date is when they report to the credit bureaus, not the due date. So if you pay it by the due date, there's no interest. If you pay it off before the statement date, there won't be a balance to report because it's paid off. So if you want to have it report but not pay interest, figure out the statement date by looking at the statement. There's the date, there's the due date, pay it off in between that. And then you won't pay interest, and that balance will report. So you get the balance reporting with no interest. Or you can just pay it down to $5 and pay interest on $5, whatever you want. Whatever is easiest for you. Justin from Facebook, what's up, brother? Hey, you said, I have heard you say don't pay off loans early. Yep. On my Denali, I owe $48,000 and almost 1 year ahead and plan on continuing to make payments on time for the following year to keep ahead. Is this good? Do I need to wait until I get closer or refinance to not pay it off early? I'm going to do this for you, but I've already covered this like 5 times, but I think you're just getting on here. So I would continue to make extra payments on that loan. Go as long as you possibly can. Pay it down as fast as possible. Do not pay it off early. Do not refinance it earlier. If you do, Justin, you're going to mess up your credit. I personally know what's going on with your credit, and the biggest problem that you have on your credit, and you and I have talked about this, and maybe it's just through chatting, but the biggest issue that you have is length of credit history. Almost everything you have is a short amount of time. You got to be patient and let that report so you can increase the average length of history, increase the credit file, show FICO that you can go year after year after year and not miss any payments. When you get an account and you pay it off, you get an account and pay it off, it ruins your credit score. So in this case, Justin, pay it off. Pay it often, pay it down as fast as possible, but do not pay it off early. If you pay it off early, it's going to screw everything up. And then you're going to be stuck in that cycle. Let me say it this way. I started driving when I was 6 years old. You can get rid of the question now, Justin, if you want. But I started driving when I was 6 years old. 5, 6 years old. My biological father, even today, he's almost 70 years old, is almost every single day of his life since 15 years old, roughly, he's either been drunk, high, stoned, or on something almost every day of his life, including when I was 5 or 6 years old and he's drunk off his ass or smoking a big fat blunt and driving. And so he would have me drive and I'd be sitting on his lap at 5 years old. We'd be doing 80, 90 miles an hour down the road. He'd be drinking his beer and rolling his joint, and I'm steering. He's running the pedals. At 14 years old, after having 8 years of driving experience, at 14 years old, I was living in Idaho. That's where I grew up. And even as of today, you can get a driver's license in Idaho at 14 years old if you live on a farm or a ranch. And they're only good during the day, and there's certain exceptions. But at 14 years old, I got a driver's license. I'm now almost 50. So legally, I have been driving 36 years. I've had a driver's license for 36 years. So my insurance and no accidents on there, no speeding tickets, 36 years of driving history with nothing negative. Do you think I have lower car insurance premiums than a 16-year-old driver or an 18-year-old driver? Do you think I pay more or less than a 16-year-old? What do you guys think? Of course I pay less, right? Of course I pay less. I got 36 years of history with no issues. What I pay every month is based on that 36 years of history. Now, I have moved a lot. I've lived in multiple states. I've lived in Idaho, Oregon, Washington, California, Colorado, Florida, and then a whole bunch of other states. But I've been residents and had driver's licenses in all 6 of those states. When you pay off loans early, when you close credit cards, it's going to shorten your length of credit history. It's like you just got a new driver's license. You started all over. So imagine if every time you moved, not out of the state, but every time you moved from the apartment to the house, to this house, to that house, or whatever, every time you moved, you got a new driver's license and you started your driving record over. Now, I'm getting ready to move next week. You guys watching this live know that I'm moving next week. If you're watching this as a recording later, I've already moved. I'm going to have to update my driver's license with my new address, right? It's the law. Imagine if Geico said, wait a minute, he's got a new address, he's got a new driving record, and they eliminate my 36 years of driving history and they re-rate me based off of my new driver's license. What's going to happen to the premium? I just went from 36 years of no issues to 1 day with the new driver's license. It would go through the roof, right? My insurance will be astronomical. It's already expensive because I got so many vehicles. But it'd be really expensive if they rated my policies and they based my policies on my driving history of the new driver's license. So when you close an account, whether it's an auto loan, installment loan, mortgage loan, credit card, or whatever, that's as if you're getting a new driver's license. And you're telling FICO, hold on, there's a high likelihood I want to miss a payment in the next 2 years because 90% of late payments happen in the first 2 years. So think about that. Every time you pay off the loan, it's going to lower your length of credit history. You want to keep it open as long as possible, just like the driver's license. You want all of that history. All right, what else we got?
He was wondering if you should refinance the end of the loan to extend it longer.
You can't refinance. So here's the thing with installment loan, guys. If you got a 5-year loan and you get down to 1 month left, you can refinance it, but it's a brand new loan. They don't like add another 5 years onto it. So when you go to refinance, it is a new loan. They don't just say, oh, here's another $50,000 and you got another 5 years and they make it a 10-year loan. You can refinance it, but it's going to show up as a new loan. Cool. Travis Turner from YouTube again says, how much of a loan in dollars do you need to keep to build credit for someone who has no previous loans? Is $5,000 enough? Does it matter? Need to be over $10,000. FICO doesn't care. They don't care. They don't care how much it is. They don't care if it's a $5 loan or a $5 million loan. It doesn't matter. Because if it mattered, it would be illegal. Because think about it this way, and it's a really good question. I get this all the time, so thank you for asking it. Do you think it would be fair for somebody like Grant Cardone who's got $1 billion in debt, do you think it'd be fair that he automatically gets an 850 credit score because he's got $1 billion in debt versus little old me that's got $10,000 worth of debt? Would that be fair that he automatically gets a higher credit score because he took out more debt? That's a higher limit. No, it's not fair. It would not be legal, and therefore it doesn't matter. FICO does not care if it's a $5 loan, a $50,000, or a $5 million loan. What they care about is the utilization rate, the balance owed versus the loan when you took it out. So an installment loan, it matters a little bit. On a mortgage, doesn't matter at all. On a credit card, it matters a lot. On a line of credit, huge decrease in your credit score if you overutilize lines of credit or credit cards. A little bit on car loans, nothing at all on mortgages. So they don't care. They don't care how much money you make. FICO doesn't care how much money you make. They don't care if you're white, brown, yellow, green, purple. They don't care what you identify as. They don't care anything. None of that matters. What matters is what's the likelihood of you making a payment. Whether or not you can financially afford to make a payment, FICO doesn't know. FICO doesn't care. It doesn't come into the formula. Income and amounts don't matter. Just like with a collection. We see this a lot on collections. People will say all the time, well, it's only a $5 collection. It's only $50. Well, that's worse. I mean, think about it this. If you have two people applying for credit, one's got a $5 collection, one's got a $5 million collection. Who would you rather lend to? The guy that never paid back the $5 or the guy that never paid back the $5 million? Because the guy that never paid back the $5 is wanting $500 from you. What do you think the likelihood of him paying you? He didn't even pay American Express for $5. This multi-billion-dollar company. Who do you think you are that you're going to get $500 out of this joker? See, when they look at it, they don't care what the balance of that collection is or the loan. They're looking at utilization. And when it comes to collections, they don't care if it's $1 or $1 million. It doesn't matter to them. The fact is, you didn't pay a bill. You had 6 months to pay it. You ignored all the phone calls. You ignored all the mail, and you just didn't pay it. And so they sent you to collections. And that's why on the credit report, it says collection filed. Public record filed. It doesn't say collection recorded. It says collection filed. It doesn't say collection with money owed. They don't care. It is filed. Okay? So, great question. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate each and every one of you. Share this video. Share it out. Share it. Share. All right. See you later.